Alright, before I get into this series, I have a quick warning. The manga that I'll be talking about today has sadly been axed, and as such is no longer continuing. However, I still enjoy this series enough to want to make a video memorializing it regardless. And also, some of the art is a bit gory at times, so be warned about that as well. So to start talking about the series, I first need to start in a pretty counterintuitive place. Video games. Video games are another piece of media that I very much enjoy, especially RPG-style games such as Persona or the Fire Emblem series. However, with that being said, there is one trend among manga that I absolutely despise, and that is the trope of a manga being based in a game world, or a manga being integrated with game-like features. And I know that probably seems a bit confusing to you. How can a manga, a book, be in any way similar to a game, not a book? Well, dear viewers, let's dive right into that. So the first main example of these types of stories that I can think of off the top of my head are isekais. Isekais are a story in which a character or a group of characters find themselves transported to another world, which makes sense when you consider that isekai means other world. Who would have guessed? And for those of you who are less familiar with anime and manga, you may be thinking, wow, that's an oddly specific genre. I wonder how many isekais there actually are for them to deserve their own name. So yeah, isekais are kinda popular. They showed up a couple years ago and started taking over the anime and manga space. Their formulaic nature and their constant barrage of shallow and illogical story beats makes it easy for other authors to decide that they want to make an isekai too. And because of that, you can't take a single step down the path to becoming an anime fan without running into an isekai or two. Sword Art Online, No Game No Life, that one with the fucking slime, it's almost a rite of passage for anime fans to watch an isekai at least once in their long and degenerative career. And I'm no different. I've gone through a lot of isekai in my time, an unhealthy amount, some would say, to the point where I'm essentially the embodiment of the "this is fine" dog. I say I'm doing okay, but deep down I've been so heavily affected by isekai stories that they're all I can think about. Are lucid dreams just your mind being isekai'd and then brought back when you wake up? What are the rules of being isekai'd? Does it happen to just anyone, or are there some prerequisites? If I die, will I be isekai'd? But all of you guys who are just watching the anime are getting off easy, because as much as I would like to say otherwise, you guys are getting the best of the best isekais delivered right to your doorstep. Over here in manga reading land, the bar for quality couldn't be lower. Because of that free-for-all aspect of the manga world, isekais populate the landscape of shitty manga that should go die. What if you get isekai'd and then turn into a dragon? What if you get isekai'd but you gain superpowers by touching a tree? And what if you get reincarnated but we're actually oh wait, no, that's just like all of them. So, isekais have large variation in terms of both quality of premise and execution. Like, you got your virgin isekai with the same black-haired big penis swordsman starting his harem, and on the other side you got stories like that one time I got reincarnated as a slime, which aside from having a really dumb name is also a very very good series in general. But back to the video game stuff. So one of the most popular images used in lowest common denominator isekais is the concept of the main character being reincarnated into a video game or a video game-like world. It always follows the formula of, oh, there's a demon lord out to lay siege on the land of...
Insert fantasy world here.
And it's up to...
Sexy main character.
To save the world from the clutches of...
Keyboard spam.
And along the way, the...
Sexy main character
has to literally level up his skills by killing everyone and everything. And those are the good ones. Some of these stories just don't even make the main character have to work to level up. They just give him these powers as soon as he's born, like he's some second coming of the baby Jesus. These isekais are actually so brain-dead sometimes, it turns me off to the entire concept of video game elements as a whole. But of course, isekais couldn't just suck the fun out of themselves, they had to go and do it to the entire fantasy genre soon after. So, following the example of the isekai stories and all the success and fame that came along with it, fantasy stories are starting to integrate the same elements of demon lords and leveling up systems and things like that. It's honestly kinda depressing that some isekai stories that don't use a video game logic and story beats can beat out fantasy stories that are supposed to be of a general higher quality. Actually, that's kind of a funny concept. The genre that's defined by being trashy and derivative is now getting better than its more respected counterpart, that's now attempting to copy said trashiness and derivativeness. But either way, the losers here are the fans, the ones who used to enjoy these stories but now are being force-fed these same old tales over and over again. And because of this industry shift, it's hard to find stories that use these video game elements in a new and creative way, to tell a cohesive story with more than just cheap thrills. But that is exactly what I found in Gesselshaft Blume. God, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Wow, that was a long intro, but now we finally get to talk more about this series. And I know I already said this in the beginning, but if you are under the age of 13, don't be, because this series contains people going bye-bye, and I think that means this video is by default PG-13. Anyways, moving on. So, Gesselshaft Blume is very edgy. It exists in the realm of media whose main characters change their hair color just to show people how cool and awesome they are. And as an extension, this series occasionally thinks it's smarter than it actually is. It does have some very cool and complex moments, but not all of them fit, and very often this series references highbrow concepts of interpersonal relationships and the idea of predetermination, and sometimes it just comes off as excessive. Like, the story contains these themes really well, and I see the connections it's trying to make. I just feel like sometimes the references the story makes are the equivalent to that one kid who quotes Shakespeare randomly and thinks it makes him sound cool. But aside from the occasional bouts of overcomplicated rambling, this story still manages to tell a mature, thematically rich story that's only slightly edgy. Alright, so to explain the plot, the best place to start is the title. According to Google, Gesselshaft means social relationships based on impersonal ties as a duty to a society or an organization. And that's exactly what the story is about. Our main character, Truza, is a subjugator, or a class of humans specifically designed to kill demon lords. Classes in the world of Gesellschaft Blume are something designed at birth. They're a role that you're given to play in the world. If somebody was born with the class of a cook, they would be predisposed to cooking-related passions and would receive fulfillment based on their work in that particular field. And that's where the first theme of predetermination comes into the story. And we'll get to that more later on. So Truza's class is revealed as a subjugator due to the imminent rise of a demon lord, an entity which seeks the destruction of the world, who gets reborn time and time again every few years. And if this story is starting to sound a bit familiar, good job because you've been paying attention, because these are the exact same archetypes we discussed earlier. The hero's role is substituted with the subjugators here, and the demon lord is copied down to the name into the story of Gesellschaft Blume. It's the same story, the same villain, the same hero, the same overpowered main character. Or is it? Because while the system of leveling exists in this story, just like it exists in other video game inspired stories, and the level of a person directly corresponds to their power, the main character, the subjugator, the hero of this tale, is forever stuck at level 1. The subjugator's power doesn't come down to some broken sheath-like ability, nor does it come from the power of friendship and love. It stems all from the death of their comrades. As I just said, levels determine everything. The power, the skill, all of it comes down to the individual's level. However, while the monsters of the world have levels numbering the 50s, it's rare to see an individual human's level that crosses the 20s. Leveling, unlike the way it works in other stories, is a hard nay impossible task, as shown by the highest level a human is risen to not even reaching the triple digits, while the level of a demon lord easily exceeds 1000. So then you may be asking, how do the subjugators fight against the demons and monsters that are plaguing the land? Well, that comes down to their one and only skill, hero compensation. By ingesting the bodily fluids of another human, subjugators can form a contract with them, binding their life to the subjugators, and so when the contractors' lives run out, their levels are temporarily accumulated and added to the subjugators' own. And as such, the only way for humanity to defeat higher and higher level monsters is by sacrificing more and more of their own to the subjugators' hands. It's a concept that goes back to the classic shonen debate of the lives of the many versus the lives of the few, and whether you should sacrifice those few who are close to you for the good of the many who aren't. And while most stories usually take a weak stance on the issue, with the hero usually saving both the lives of the many and the few, because he's the hero, Gesellschaft Blume stands squarely with the majority. And it's in this concept where we see the first thematic connection arise. The idea of Gesellschaft, the concept of connections arising solely based off of duty and need and not out of any true feelings or desire. And that is the situation where Truza finds himself in. He, being an orphan in a place of war and turmoil, was never unfamiliar with the concept of death. However, he now finds the need to form relationships and lie to people in order to save the world in which he inhabits, even going as far as to murder his own comrades to slay his own enemies. Truza is a tragic hero. He always achieves his goal, however he does so with no emotional attachment to his cause nor his methods, leaving him broken with every monster he kills. Yet he still goes on, continuing to call both those next to and opposing him, just out of the sense of duty he has deep inside of him. And that brings us to the second core theme of the story, the idea of predisposition, the concept that no matter what happens and who we are as people, we all have a set role to play in the grand scheme of things. The world of Gesellschaft Blume is split into 7 levels, much like the 7 circles of hell, and each of them embodying a different aspect of life. A level torn and ravaged by war, a level of pleasure and relaxation, and a level for the poor and unwanted few, who sit at the bottom of society. And on top of the entire world sits its controllers and overseers, the Watchers. The Watchers, the mysterious organization they're a part of, is the force responsible for the inner workings of the world, and are on both sides of the conflict. As I said, this story ended somewhat prematurely, so at least in the manga they aren't the most fully fleshed out organization, but from what I've read through, the Watchers are essentially the villains. As I've said before, this world is based on the jobs given to people at their birth, and this can range from mundane ones to more specialized classes like Nostril Mage or Shroom Grower, and even more specialized than those are the classes of Demon Lord and Subjugator. I've already talked about the Subjugators in length, so I'll be moving on to the Demon Lord side of things for now. Unlike in other stories where the Demon Lord is some horned creature that's bent on the destruction of the world, the title of Demon Lord in this story is something that can be passed to anyone. Demon Lords aren't genuinely evil. They may not have a malicious bone in their body, but as soon as they receive the title of Demon Lord, they can change on a dime and seek nothing but chaos. In the case of the 23rd Demon Lord, the one that's active in the story of Gesellschaft Blume, the Demon Lord was formerly a circus troupe dedicated to spreading joy. They had been performing around the third layer in hopes of entertaining the masses. That is, until they received the news that they had been picked as the Demon Lord. As soon as this happened, the formerly kind and caring crew turned murderous, and massacred their audience of fans. And this isn't because of some lust for blood that's inherited with the title like you may expect. It's simply out of duty and obligation. According to the Watchers, the Demon Lords are an integral part of the world. They are needed to cause terror and unrest among the populace, and because of that, anyone who is turned into a Demon Lord must follow that need. It's made abundantly clear through the story that the Demon Lord, or the leader of the Demon Lord in this case, as the entire troupe functions as the Demon Lord in this iteration, is a kind person. He expresses sadness at the story of others. He finds pity in his heart when one of the subjugators dies. He shows care and compassion for those even outside of his troupe. Yet he still knows his place in the world. He knows that his goal is to burn as brightly as possible, scorching the land as much as he can before his light is extinguished by the subjugators who are destined to kill him and his troupe. It's a sad existence. We also see that belief when another member of the troupe also shows his humanity, talking about his wife and kids who reside on another level. But he knows that he is the villain now, and that is his new purpose. And this level of sad existence permeates both sides of the conflict. Truzer repeats time and time again to those around him that they are less valuable than him, and that is the reason for their sudden death. Because of this, both sides of the war, both the Demon Lord and the Subjugators, come off as equal in many regards. The Demon Lord massacres the many, while the Subjugators murder the few. And it's clear that the world is on the Subjugators' side. Those who are in the know on how the Subjugators truly win their battles express nothing but pity and resignation at the sight of their comrade's death. They know nothing but this reality, and as such have no reason to seek an alternative. But throughout all of this, on both sides of the brutal conflict are the Watchers, playing both the heroes and the villains as the puppet masters behind this world. They're constantly directing the Demon Lord on where they should attack, and they send people to aid the Subjugators on their way. They are the ones that push the world into this cycle, and their reason why is one that we'll never understand. Perhaps they know some greater truth and see the need for this bloodshed, or perhaps they just do this out of their own twisted entertainment. Either way, we can only guess, as this manga ended before we could find out the truth. All we know though is that these people will forever be locked in this endless cycle of death and carnage, with the side of good always being destined to triumph over the side of evil. But at what cost? Okay, I hate to do this again, but this is going to be another two-part series, just like my breaker video. I wanted to fit everything I wanted to talk about into one video, but that just wouldn't work because the tone of this one turned very serious. Hopefully it wasn't too jarring considering my jovial tone in the opening, but I felt like it would do the series a disservice to talk about it with a smile on my face throughout. But I have some things I want to talk about in regards to the series next week, so look forward to that. But yeah, it should be a lot lighter in tone considering I got all of the heavy thematic stuff out of the way this time. So yeah, thanks for watching, like and subscribe and share this video if you can, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!